Hello everyone, my name is JD.
And this is Logan.
And this is the WireTap, brought to you by the Conservative Wire. And this is going to be a bit of a part B to our last video. It's recorded right after it, but we just wanted to continue because, as I mentioned at the end of that video, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't get to, and I felt that we should get to it. So this is probably going to be a bit of a shorter video than normal, probably actually under 20 minutes. I've been wanting to try to do 20-minute videos for a long time, and it seems like that we always have too much to talk about to fit it into to 20 minutes. So, but I want to pick back up and examine a little closer what I unfortunately missed and wasn't able to quite get to whenever we were having our discussion about the Democratic candidates and their responses to these shootings, which happened, a week ago. And I want to start back up with Kamala Harris and a tweet that she sent out. And this is from August 5th. And whenever you guys are seeing this, it will probably be Saturday. So a bit of time will have gone by, but I still want to address this because even though that it's not the most current, it's still notable to look at and to see what these people are doing and what they've said about this event and about people regarding this event for their own gain. Kamala Harris said, "Assault weapons are weapons of war. They're designed to kill a lot of people quickly. There is no reason they should exist on the streets of a civil society. As president, I'll take executive action to ban imports of AR-15 style assault weapons." Nobody can give you a clear definition of what an assault weapon is, because assault weapons are basically any type of gun. But the left just doesn't want to come out and say that. But assault weapons are essentially any type of gun, and for some reason, the left has latched onto the AR-15 as
It's the boogeyman of guns.
as the boogeyman for firearms and for weapons for some reason. That's just what they've gravitated to. I mean, it is an immensely popular firearm, but I mean,
I wouldn't.
For some reason, that is their pet for what needs to be banned is the AR-15.
I would say that the AK-47 would be a much more popular gun than the AR-15.
Well, and much more notable, but not necessarily popular amongst purchases and everything. But I just don't understand out of everything why they make the AR-15 rifle that. I would have thought that they would have went after handguns, which, I mean, they do. They go after handguns plenty. And in fact, I've seen a lot of calls for 10 rounds to a magazine for semi-automatic pistols or anything of the sort. A 10-round limit to your magazines. Because why does anybody need any more than 10 rounds? Well, I don't... I mean,
tell me.
It's not really the point. It's not really the point. Your rights aren't based off of what you need or what's necessary. In fact, rather, your rights protect what isn't necessary, in excess of what's necessary.
Do we apply that principle to freedom of speech? It's only how many words you need to prove your point.
Yeah.
No more, no less.
The only restrictions on your speech, typically, are those that are, threats or, anything of the sort. Words of threats of violence or terrorism or, anything like that. Misinformation, disinformation. None of that is protected, but anything else in between is fine. Anything else in between is protected, and I argue even speech of white nationalists and white supremacists are protected to an extent.
The ACLU
even
to protect them.
Even though that, I don't agree with it whatsoever and that it's totally off the wall bonkers and crazy, I think it's still protected.
Yeah.
Under the First Amendment. And our rights are not based off of what's needed. Or the burden is not on us to prove why we need more than 10 rounds. The burden of proof is not on us to prove why we need our right. Rather, the base position is that we have that right and that it typically can't be touched, or that the government, there needs to be a solid case presented by the government for why there needs to be any sort of restriction on it.
Yeah.
Or any sort of caveat that it doesn't cover. It's actually the reverse. But again, assault weapons is just a catch-all term, really, for just gun. Because there is no definition of an assault weapon, because it varies from person to person. Because there is no
opinionated definition.
It's a loaded, opinionated term. And once again, Harris takes a page out of Obama's book, and I'll take executive action. Beto O'Rourke took to Twitter, and he said, "You cannot leave it up to me. Members of the press," he's sending out a PSA here to the press, "you too have to call him out for being the most racist president since Andrew Johnson." And I know that really got underneath your skin.
It did.
He kept going for Johnson.
And the thing is, I thought, well, there's a lot more notable, I think, in a way, and much more recent racist president than Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah.
But you see, I think, even amongst the groups and amongst liberals today, Woodrow Wilson is still a high figure.
He's still an idolized figure.
An idolized figure because he's the father of the modern progressive movement.
Yeah. And I think that there's even a case, maybe not an openly racist president, but I think that there's certainly a case that a more recent racist president, a more recent racist president is LBJ, which there's a couple things in there that you could look for yourself,
do your independent research,
and see as to why. But like earlier, like we discussed last episode, that Biden talks about Jackson, and Beto O'Rourke goes for Johnson. Which I think part of going for that, I think you are right in saying that Wilson is still a revered figure in the progressive community, although that affinity for him is starting to wane.
Yeah.
His popularity is not what it used to be. He's always listed as, one of the top 10 greatest presidents, because you typically always have Wilson and FDR.
Oh, yeah.
Almost always.
Democrats are still running off of FDR to this day.
In the top 10 greatest presidents, usually by these, leftist colleges and all this kind of stuff. Harvard, top 10 presidents, these studies. Typically, Wilson and Roosevelt are in the top 10. Usually, Teddy Roosevelt is in there, sometimes not. But that affinity, I think, is starting to fade away. But I think more so than just that affinity still being there is, I think that it's also taking the point of Andrew Johnson, hasn't been president since, the mid 19th century.
Yeah.
And this is the man who's in the White House right now in 2019 is the most racist man who's ever been in who's ever been in office since the middle of the 19th century. Look at how long we've gone since we've had such a terrible president. I think that that's part of the underlying message.
Yeah.
Throughout all that. O'Rourke also tweeted out and he said, "We very consciously started out 243 years ago on the premise that we're all created equal. We've never quite lived up to it, but until now, until this administration, we never stopped trying." I don't know other than just pure conjecture, useless conjecture, this is a point that is so devoid of any sort of intellectual thought or legitimate argument that I don't even know where you go or where you start to rebut this, because it's so devoid of any sort of logical thought or fact.
Well, honestly, all of his statements and all of any of the Democratic candidate statements, and they're the ones that are getting the most attention, it's partly pandering, and it's to get that 1 to 2% poll boost. Who can say the most outrageous thing? Who can call Donald Trump a racist the most?
And the most creatively.
Yeah, the most creatively to call Trump a racist, to demonize the NRA. How can we get all of this together? It's just campaign optics.
He also said, tweeted out, "This president who helped create the hatred that made Saturday's tragedy possible should not come to El Paso. We do not need more division. We need to heal. He has no place here."
Well, once again, trying to get more outrageous, because honestly, you scrolled through Twitter Sunday night. What'd you think? I scrolled through CNN's Twitter and I thought that it was Beto O'Rourke's campaign team at first, before I realized it was even CNN.
Yeah.
So
yeah, CNN was just having, as Mr. Limbaugh would put it, multiple orgasms over Beto O'Rourke and the things that he was saying. Because, yeah, you were right. CNN was all over. They were eating up everything that Beto O'Rourke was saying.
And I mean,
in all of his comments.
He got the media attention. He's back in the public eye right now.
Yeah.
He's a leading person in El Paso taking the charge to Trump.
And it's just that's part of what's so sick about all this is that these people we went through, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, now Beto O'Rourke,
Joe Biden,
and Joe Biden, who were all using this as an opportunity to increase their poll percentage.
And that might
who can make the best, who can have the best sound bites and make the most outrageous statements and the most creatively derogatory things about Trump to play to their base and to try to increase their polls.
And I mean, that might just be, these are the most notable. I don't know what the other 20 have said.
Yeah.
And
I mean, because they're so unimportant. I mean, quite honestly, because they're so unimportant.
Yeah.
So we have a tweet from a man. I'm not really sure who he is. I never heard of him, but there's a lot of liberals that I've never heard of. Reza Aslan.
No.
I mean, I've never heard of him. He's apparently an Iranian scholar, I think, like a Muslim scholar. I apologize if I mispronounced the name, but I just honestly never heard it pronounced. And he quoted Kellyanne Conway, a tweet that she sent out, and I'll read the sentence that he quotes from. She says, "Working as one to understand depraved evil and to eradicate hate is everyone's duty." Now, there was more in that tweet, but that was just a sentence from it. He pull quotes it, and he says, "You are," in quotes, "the depraved evil we need to eradicate." And that's the kind of stuff that these people have been saying all this time. Every time, like, one of these instances happens, and they've been saying this nonstop since El Paso. And the thing is that if a conservative said this kind of stuff, they would be lambasted and they would be run off and probably quite literally kicked off the platform.
Yeah. They'd lose their show.
They lose their minds over Donald Trump for saying, like, not even half, like, nowhere near this level of...
It's barely comparable.
I mean, yeah, it's been barely comparable to being the same thing. Because this is, I think about it, as close to the line as you can get
before calling for violence against
before,
someone.
yeah, you're calling for violence. Like, this is as close as you can get, and I think that it kind of crosses the line. I mean, really, I do. In my
eradication of someone.
I think to say that you are, what we need to eradicate kind of crosses the line.
I mean, yeah, I think so.
Nothing that Trump has ever said, none of the, send them back or anything is even close to any of this. And that crap caused such an uproar that Twitter, started looking at their terms, and they amended their terms, and they're, considering putting warnings on tweets or profiles of people who have tweets that might be, sensitive or, provocative in some way.
Yeah.
That's what they consider doing, specifically aimed at Trump, though, for all that. And Reza also tweeted out, and he said, in all the sudden and belated think pieces about how the President of the United States is a white nationalist terror leader, so let's just stop there. The sudden and belated, as though these should have been out further. That the President of the United States is a white nationalist terror leader.
How did we not see it before?
I mean, yeah, how have we not seen it before? Please let us not lose sight of the fact that he is also a rapist.
See, we had already discovered that one.
We had already discovered that. That was case closed, except to idiots. The only people who don't know that are absolutely mental inferiors. But we're now on to what is already should be known by any rationally thinking person.
Like Mr. Reza.
Like Mr. Aslan here. And that Trump is a white nationalist terrorist leader. Him and Osama bin Laden would get along great because they both run their own terrorist factions. Not great for different purposes, but Trump is a white nationalist. He is practically the grand wizard of the KKK, the Grand Master Dragon Wizard.
It's a good thing that we have minds like this to enlighten us.
It is so great that we have somebody who can give us such crisp, clear insight, the likes of which none of us mere mortals could even comprehend or think of.
We not only discover something new, but he reminds us of what we already know.
This is the kind of stuff, if you would have said this about Obama, you were a racist. Calling President Obama a racist or saying anything like that would have been your death sentence 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, it's your death sentence in liberal media if you don't say that. And if you aren't on board with that point of view. It's the end of your career if you don't say that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We saw it at the debate. Obama now has become a target and will become a casualty to the new liberal left and the new progressive movement.
Yeah, to the new liberal left, because Obama was the golden child for them in 2008.
He did.
And he did a lot of damage. He did a lot of damage, irreparable damage in some ways to this nation. But now Obama, in their attempts to attack Biden, Obama is becoming a casualty of them attacking Trump. Which is really fascinating. It's really fascinating that they can't find a way to damage Donald Trump. So their way to do it is to destroy Obama in order to try to get to Trump. It's really the most weird mental gymnastics that I've ever seen by the left. But, they're going to try it. I feel like it's like...
They're going to go for it.
I mean, they're going to go for it. I feel like it's an episode of the Three Stooges or something where Curly, is trying to get into bed and they have everything, stacked on top of each other and like some kind of Wile E. Coyote plan. But that's what they're trying to do. But this kind of language, you don't think that this kind of language would incite violence? You don't think that this kind of language would not incite any sort of pushback or physical assaults or attacks on people?
You just compared him to a terrorist leader.
And we completely overlook the last part, the fact that he's also a rapist, which there's no proof of. There's only allegation, which anyone can make an allegation against anyone for anything.
Yeah.
You know. But you don't think that this kind of language can't do that more so than anything that Trump has ever said? Because he's never publicly abrogated for violence. He's never said anything to personally attack other people. In this way, is what I mean. I mean, he's made personal attacks against other people, but he's never said things like this that are like personal threats against others. He's never said anything like that.
I mean,
you don't think that this could do that? You don't look in the mirror enough to see that?
Call for the eradication of a person, an ideal.
Yeah. But this has kind of been the second half of a conversation that we were having on, earlier in the first episode, and we just wanted to continue it. And we want to thank you guys for joining us for this episode. It's really a pleasure doing this kind of stuff, and it's really fun. And we're heading into the fall, and we're going to be starting up school and everything. So we'll see how that affects our recording schedule and our uploads and everything. I don't know, but we'll see. But make sure that you guys comment on stuff that you want to see us do in the future, on ideas and topics that you want to see us discuss. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, follow, favorite. You can share this with your friends. Follow us on Twitter at the CWire, capital TCNW is at the CWire. We're always active on there, commenting, debating with people. You can, give us a mention, give us a DM, ask us questions, do whatever you like. And we want to thank you guys for being along here for this edition of the WireTap. And this is a channel, and this is a network that you guys are helping us build. So with that, for Logan, I am JD, and we will see you guys in the next episode. God bless.